I am bummed. I am shocked. It is disappointing to what's happening to Karrion Kross. And if you are a Karrion Kross fan, you probably feel the same way I do. And if you're not a Karrion Kross fan, you probably want to know what makes Karrion Kross fans like him so much. Well, my name is Sancho West, and welcome to Sancho West Wrestling, where we go in depth and talk about wrestling in a different way. And if you are interested in that kind of thing, be sure to sub to the channel. Now, in this video, is more going to be a reaction to the Karrion documentary part 2 and the news that he has not re-signed with the WWE, or the WWE has not offered him a contract. And if they did offer him a contract, anyway, the point is we're going to react to that situation. But an underlying thing that's kind of happening that I don't think a lot of people are talking about it is that how the WWE treats an organic superstar, a superstar that got themselves over, and then how it's different from the Vince McMahon era, which I won't really talk too much on, but this is more specific to the Triple H era and how we all are supposed to feel like this is going to be a different era, that if you got yourself over, you would be rewarded. And I think that is the kind of the crux of this entire situation with Karrion Kross. But let's talk about the documentary first. It released about yesterday. It's about an hour long. I highly recommend it. It's an interesting insight to what a wrestler is. Now, some people are going to say and be skeptical and be like, this entire thing is a work, is overproduced, it's highly produced. But that just doesn't mean that you were on this Karrion Kross ride as early as I was. Karrion Kross, when he got the Final Testament and things like that, I started to notice some things. This was a guy that was putting in the work beyond to what was required. If you go to his timeline on his X account, you will see that there's so many vignettes, so many self-produced, like kind of mini documentaries, his own vlogs and things of that sort. That kind of felt like he was stepping up to a whole new level. His production levels and his commitment went to another stratosphere, and his commitment to his outside presence really started to work. As this after this, he took a page from Drew McIntyre and started to put himself socially out there. And the more he was socially superstar, so to speak, the more people started to get attraction to him. So I started to notice that Karrion Kross is posting these really cool vignettes, these really cool promos on his own socials, and he's kind of taking it to the next level. I kind of think of him like an AJ Francis in that aspect, when AJ Francis, aka Top Dollar, was making his own music videos, making his own rap videos, doing his own promos and things of that sort. And he was basically getting himself skills that will help him in the future. So when he released part 1 of WrestleMania, and that kind of organic viral moment that he had with that podcast promo, that was part 1. And so part 2 deals with the fallout of that and how he hit the money. He hit a home run, grand slam, and the fallout of that. And I think one of the most interesting parts of the documentary is he talks about how he couldn't fully embrace the moments of success because he was always being told he was doing something wrong. And that is a bad place to be, no matter who you are, no matter what you do in life, is when you feel like you're doing well, when you feel like you're kind of progressing, you're making life movements, and then all of a sudden someone tells me you're wrong. And that sucks. And I think that's one of the most interesting parts of this whole thing, is that Karrion Kross, in the promo that he did at WrestleMania, called himself a good soldier, and he talked about being viral and doing all the right things, but he is not being rewarded as such. But let's go ahead and jump into the very beginning of the documentary. One of the most profound things he said was that pro wrestling talks about you turn pain into art. And I totally agree with that. Pro wrestling to me is theatrics in a high level stakes and high stakes. It's live action drama, right? You take these real characters, these real people, you put characters on it, and then you play out these epic dramatic stories. A lot of people have different loves or different reasons why they love wrestling. Sometimes your father got you into wrestling, your mom, your grandfather, your grandma, all these kinds of things we are attached to pro wrestling in a different kind of way, and we all love it for different reasons. But I really like the symbolism of that. Pain into art. And one of the other things he says that was really profound is that the canvas, he says you could make a lot of money from the canvas, but when the canvas says you're done, it's going to tell you when it's done. So it's clear to me that Karrion Kross understands not only the business front of the side of things, but he understands the finality of it, that it could also end at a moment's notice. One of the things that they told him, Karrion Kross is seemingly a superstar that checks all the boxes. And that's one of those questions that I feel that people ask that are not necessarily Karrion Kross haters, but they go, well, Karrion Kross doesn't really work well in the ring. He's a mid-card, things of that sort. I think I echo what was said in the documentary. I'm not wanting him to be strapped to the moon and get a belt and things like that. I'm not asking him to be an undisputed champion. I just want him to be rewarded for what the work he's doing. If he just becomes a mid-card heel and that's it, that's fine to me. I think he's a great mid-card heel at that point. But the point is, it feels like the work that he's doing on the outside wasn't being rewarded when he was on television. It was as if he was like being shoved aside. And that's where the kind of friction happened between the fans and to what the WWE is doing. And in fact, that friction kind of continues on between Karrion Kross. In the documentary, he says there was a moment where in Providence, if you don't remember, the We Want Kross really started to happen to the point to it shocked me as I was doing a reaction to it. But Karrion Kross stops and acknowledges and he says, well, you got me now. And then after of that Monday Night Raw, in the post part of the show, as he was leaving the people We Want Kross, he was kind of admiring it, signing autographs, things of that sort. And he kind of mentions a part where there was a kid that wanted his attention. And he stopped and made sure he gave that kid's attention, and then he left. And that somebody later told him that he should have no-sold it. You should have don't sell the reaction, so to speak. And this is where I find it interesting, is that the WWE is clearly taking off the curtain, showing you behind the scenes look from kayfabe and things of that sort. But then there's certain things that they want to keep kayfabe. There are certain things that they want to protect, that if Karrion Kross is supposed to not be pushed, then they want to make sure that kayfabe, he doesn't get pushed, and they want him to no-sell things. And I think that juxtaposition of, hey, we listen to the fans, if you go viral, we listen to the pulse of all those catchphrases that was said, the zingers that was said in WWE Unreal, and if that doesn't come true, and when we see it in something that it's an organic superstar, then that's when we start raising questions. That's when the hashtag starts hitting all the social medias. But I think We Want Kross is different because it's not a We Want Cody situation, and it's not a We Want Daniel Bryan. It's not even a We Want Kofi. This is a different type of thing because this is a guy that's on the mid card. This is a guy that doesn't really have title aspirations on the main stage, right? We just want someone that's given his due. And that is where I feel that the We Want Kross, kind of the swelling of that uproar of someone that has been doing all the right things, and that we see all the right things being done right, but it's not translating to what's happening in programming. One of the also interesting things that he said was that the most frustrating part about being a pro wrestler in the WWE, well, he didn't really draw this logic, but it's alluded to it, that when you're hot and it's the wrong time, when you're hitting all cylinders, but you're being put in park because it is not your time. And I think in the nature of the business, of course, not everybody could be at the top. Not everybody could be champion. And at the same time, not everybody could have the rocket. Not everybody could get the push. But when there's something clearly happening, a groundswell, a momentum push, and that's being capped off, and when I see that the WWE feels like it's best to hold on to this as long as possible and then let it go, thinking that that's going to propel him even further, I find that it's going to hurt the other way. It becomes a toxic type of situation. There's other things that he kind of points out as well, is that he wanted to negotiate a January contract thing, and that didn't happen, and that contract negotiations didn't talk. It's interesting to see that this Karrion Kross could have this level of documentary, and I feel like other wrestlers maybe can as well, but he's the one that actually put in the work. He hired his own videographer, his own person to put it together. Who knows all the work that Karrion Kross did on his own to get this out there. It's on his own channel, things of that sort. And I feel that it is interesting, and I feel like every WWE superstar probably has the same story. Always wanted to be a superstar since they were a kid, was ingrained to them at an early point in childhood, has a lot of struggles, a lot of injuries to get to where they are, has paid their dues, has had ideas squashed. You hear it time and time again from different wrestlers where they brought ideas and it didn't happen. I think the main difference is we as fans thought it'd be different in a Triple H type of TKO type of era, and it's hard to digest, and it's hard to swallow the actual pill of understanding that it's not so much that. One of the also awesome things about this entire thing is that the fan connection. The fans do love Karrion Kross, and Karrion Kross and Scarlett love them back, and that he genuinely does care. And that's what I mentioned. Like, of course, I think other WWE superstars may care as much as well too, but we don't know that because no one else is putting out as much work or putting out a documentary. There, of course, are other stories from other WWE superstars in the past that don't care about the fans. There are lots of stories from the Lex Luger days where Lex Luger didn't really embrace the fans. He didn't understand about embracing that lifestyle so much, and it bothered Lex Luger. But of course, all that has changed as time goes on. But it's clear as day is that they do care about Karrion Kross. I like the metaphor that Karrion Kross said in the video, that as if he's playing basketball. And if you're an international fan, or you may not like basketball, of course, basketball is an international sport. I digress. The point I want to make is like, as if you're in basketball and you get past the ball and you're open for a 3-point shot, but they get mad at you because you took the shot and you made the 3. You would think they'd be happy, and that's what Karrion says. I made the 3, but then they wanted me to pass it to somebody else. And I think that metaphor for him sticks in a lot throughout this entire documentary. One of the also interesting things he said is that he was being approached by veterans, that he didn't want to name the help for his promos and the help for the programs that they were involved with, because they admire and they see the value of his eye and they see the value of what he does. They even talked about Karrion Kross maybe becoming a producer just because he has that ability to, deliver organic promos and deliver an interesting way to connect with the characters and to connect with the audience. Because you got to remember, dude, Karrion was given absolutely nothing, and he was given a lot of baggage in the Final Testament, and he made it work. When that didn't work, he continued. When that didn't work, he survived. When that didn't work, he kept going. When he was given less and less screen time, he made it work, to the point that he got a match at SummerSlam. I think also the thing that kind of nails it for me is he says that his character of Karrion Kross can't be a stalker if he doesn't get his prey. As if you watch a movie about some scary thriller and that it doesn't happen. Like, there's no point of that. Now, you could argue that maybe it's like a Wile E. Coyote situation from the Looney Tunes, where maybe the Coyote will never get the Roadrunner. And if he did get the Roadrunner, the whole show would be over. And that he has to keep going. But at the same time, Wile E. Coyote is a foil. He's a fool. We laugh at Wile E. Coyote because of his shortcomings of never getting the Roadrunner, being outsmarted. But that's not what wrestling is for Karrion Kross. We have to fear Karrion Kross. We have to fear that this guy is eventually going to be right at some point. And when he keeps losing, and the way he lost at SummerSlam was probably the most deflating way that he lost, it defangs him. He's a snake with no bite. And if you can't have that character exist, because exactly what happens is then people will just slowly go, you don't matter. You could be like an LA Knight saying, I'm going to win this, I'm going to win that. And if LA Knight doesn't win those things, we're going to it doesn't matter if LA Knight comes out and challenges. So at the end of the day, when Karrion is being told at the end of the documentary, is where it kind of ends near the SummerSlam, right? Before SummerSlam, he's being told multiple times about people, don't let Sami Zayn get booed, do all that you can to not get cheers. And then he's basically said that he's unable to embrace that moment, like I talked about. He's unable to embrace moments fully because he's being told that he's being wrong. And I think it's not that he's being told that he's being wrong. He's being told that you're hitting your glass ceiling. You're at the top of your ceiling, buddy, and you're not ready. We're not ready for you to go beyond that. And I think that's what made a lot of frustration. It's a lot of poor timing, the perfect storm of he's getting hot and his contract is up and we're not quite sure what to do with you. It kind of reminds me of R-Truth. R-Truth was in the same situation. R-Truth was let go. The fans got upset. The WWE brought him back. They gave him a moment with John Cena. Once he came back, he cut a promo. He cut his hair. And he was saying, you're going to see the real me. I am in the driver's seat now. And it went nowhere. Now, me as a fan of R-Truth, I understand that R-Truth has a great value as a comedic wrestler. And comedic wrestlers are hard to do. They are probably the hardest thing to find in wrestling, because a comedic wrestler could either be a one note and they be so surface level that they could be really corny and annoying. But I feel like R-Truth had a lot of different layers to him that made him a very lovable character, and that no one else on the roster could be a lovable character like R-Truth, not even a Cody Rhodes, right? And I said this really quickly is that The Rock, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, like Ric Flair, they can never deliver a emotional kind of promo like a Cody Rhodes. So everyone has a certain role, and I feel like R-Truth filled a role that not that many could reach to. Like I think of Mick Foley and I think of Santino that could be those comedic characters. So when R-Truth came back and They tried, like when R-Truth said, I'm going to be something different. And I think the WWE didn't know where to put him and they didn't have plans for him. I don't think they gave the new Ron Killings type of character that platform to excel. It's basically like a plant with no water, no sun. And then us fans go, well, we want R-Truth back because, of course, they did nothing with the other one, right? So that is my fear about this Karrion Kross situation. Now, the only thing that has been back in my mind that's been gnawing at my brain is this Paul Heyman interview that recently happened. Paul Heyman kind of compares this whole Karrion Kross thing to Stone Cold Steve Austin. And as someone that grew up in the Attitude Era, I'm like, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Karrion Kross, that's kind of different, right? Karrion Kross isn't kind of, I know, it perplexed me, as you can see. Like, Stone Cold Steve Austin started off in the mid-card, sure, but he won the King of the Ring. You know, he beat Jake the Snake Roberts because someone got injured and then they put the belt, they gave him the King of the Ring title, but he still didn't really do anything until later when he won the Royal Rumble. And that's not happening with Karrion Kross, right? Karrion Kross is not going to win the King of the Ring. He wasn't even in the tournament, right? He's not going to be in the Royal Rumble to win. And every time that I have this feeling like, oh my God, Karrion's in the Royal Rumble, he's going to do something, he gets tossed out, right? I'm like, Karrion Kross needs to do something really important here, find the Final Testament, gets tossed out. And that's when I kind of get a pushback on the Paul Heyman comparison to Stone Cold. Now, you may be pushing back on the attitude or the in-ring or the promo skills. Yes, Stone Cold is GOAT status. But I'm just telling, like, Karrion Kross, I don't see that in Paul. I don't see him being like the Stone Cold, because he said, oh, they shouted his name, they bought his merch, and then they finally put him on TV. And I was like, no, that's different. The Attitude Era latched themselves to Stone Cold Steve Austin because the entire culture shift of the 90s and the early 2000s, and then you had the WCW breathing down the neck of the WWE. You had NWO, the rise of NWO, and the only thing that the WWE had, they went from the new generation of that old 80s wrestling with Bret Hart and the Hulk Hogan and all those kinds of things. They had no choice but to switch over to Stone Cold to keep up with the culture shift that was happening in the 90s and the late 90s and what was happening in WCW. So this is not a Stone Cold situation. Karrion is his own situation. One of the things that Paul said that we are going to leave this video with is the WWE is creating an organic superstar. When Paul Heyman was being asked about it, and he's like, well, is it working? Do we want more Karrion? The depravity of Karrion Kross, not seeing Karrion Kross, not giving him opportunities, not giving him ring time. Does that make us, the fan, want to see him more, type of thing? And the guy said, yeah. And I was like, well, then it's working. As if to kind of say that the WWE is planning for all this to happen. And like I said, at the time of this recording, there's no indication of that. Literally on Monday Night Raw tonight, Karrion Kross could come out and create an outsider Scott Hall, Kevin Nash situation where, like, you know who I am, and take over. Karrion Kross could show up on TNA and say, we are with Scarlett. I'm here to take over. He could show up on NXT and do that. He could keep showing up over and over and over again, being kicked out, buy tickets. They could work angles. They could re-sign him, and he could do all that. But I don't like this notion of the WWE creating this bad habit of an organic superstar by depriving us of what we want. And this is not a Cody Rhodes situation either. The We Want Cody movement was a fascinating situation. And I think this could be another video talking about how the WWE approaches kayfabe, and sometimes this whole showing behind the curtain, revealing the wizard type of situation is causing more problems than they think. Because now we know some of the things, and we know how some of the things work. And then when we kind of have an understanding of that, and they go against what they showed us before, then it creates problems, right? But I think what happens when We Want Cody and the Cody movement on the internet, and then went to the fans, and the takeovers, and the replying to want every single post from the WWE, we want Cody, we want Cody. I see the same thing again. We want Kross, we want Kross. And I'm just not sure. I feel like with Cody Rhodes, it was high stakes. I feel like with Cody Rhodes, he went in for business for himself for the right reason. I always look back to that Royal Rumble win, that last one that he did, and I forget the Royal Rumble 2024. And he's sitting there and he's looking at Roman, he's looking at Seth, and he gets up there and he says, I want you, Roman. I don't think that was planned. And there's rumors that it wasn't. But I always felt in that moment, I was like, wow, Cody is calling his shot right away. And the difference between Cody Rhodes and Karrion Kross is that Cody is given the platform at the WWE stage to do that. Karrion Kross has not been given that platform. He's doing everything he can organically on his own with social media, with his connection with the fans. And I think that is the difference here. And I think the most interesting thing is during the SummerSlam post show, Triple H clearly hears "We want Kross," and then replies, "You wanted Brock? Well, we got him. You got him." And I think that is where there is the divide, respectfully, is that when the fans want Karrion Kross, you get Brock Lesnar, something that we didn't ask for. And there's just so many things to combine to this whole complex thing of creating things, giving the fans what they want, yet giving them something that they didn't know what they want. But it's clear as day is that we do want just fair opportunities for Karrion Kross. It's a wild time to be part of the WWE, and I think the WWE is continuing to blur the lines of kayfabe, and that will create these discussions. And I think if you're a WWE executive or a creative, you're probably happy that this discussion's happening. You're happy that this friction is happening. But I think like over time, we're going to get fatigued of always being played or worked this way. I'd be interested to hear what you think about this. At the end of the day, one thing I will leave you with is that sometimes the top of the mountain never is the top of the mountain. Now, Karrion said that he wants to be a WWE guy forever, and most likely, hopefully he gets to re-sign, and maybe this video is going to be the worst evergreen video you can think of, because on Monday Night Raw, he could do all the things that I said, and all this will be a wash, and everything will be forgotten. Like a wave of the hand, we all forgot that Karrion Kross wasn't signed, and this was all part of the plan. It was all part of the show. But I'm here to tell you that sometimes you think X thing is the top of the mountain, and if that thing doesn't work out, or when you get to that top of the mountain and you're like, dude, I made it, I don't have to do anything anymore, I'm here, maybe that was not your end. So maybe this right here for Karrion Kross, him reaching the WWE, is not the end. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe for more wrestling takes. I bid you adieu.